Welcome to Women Entrepreneurs Radio with your host, Deb Bailey. When I started this podcast in 2008, I was on a mission to promote women business owners, creatives, and entrepreneurs. In each episode, my guests provide resources, valuable tips, and inspiration. Women Entrepreneurs Radio is about showing women how to harness their natural strength to achieve success on their own terms. Hi everyone, this is Deborah. I'm so glad to be back again talking about how authors can add certain tools to their toolkit to get their books out, to get marketed, to build their author brands, all that good stuff. And last time I was talking about creating podcasts for authors, and I was going to come back a lot sooner than I have, so sorry about that, but I had some other things come up, and you know how life can be. So I just wanted to get back on track and this time talk a little bit about how authors can use blogs. And this is pretty much something that's based on a class that I gave several months ago now. Can't remember exactly how long ago it was, but I presented it over a weekend for some authors during a online conference. And pretty much I got a lot of feedback from authors who really were surprised that they could do so many different things with their content. But, there were questions, for instance, are blogs still a thing? Are they really going to get the return on investment? Things like that. And I felt like, sure, you're gonna get a return on your investment, but a couple of things you have to consider is, what kind of return are you really looking for? And that's why it's important to have an idea of what it is you're looking to achieve and not just jump into blogging unless you're already doing it, and that's great if you are. But not just jump into it because you're like, I have to do something. I'm going to run from this to this to this to this. But to really have an understanding of what it is you hope to achieve from having a blog. What would you hope that it's going to do for you? And then that way you can at least have an idea of what your blog's going to be about and consistency, content, all that good stuff. So I think just to touch on social media for a moment. Doing blogging doesn't mean social media goes away or that you have to ignore it. I know for some people, they're not maybe using certain social media platforms as much. And it's easy to get burned out on those platforms. So that's understandable. And often people are looking for some alternatives because maybe what they're doing isn't really working. In spite of maybe, what some experts are saying, you should do this, that, post this often, do this over here, create these graphics over there. And, that works for some people, may not work for others. And then after a while, you feel like you're spinning your wheels. And then that's when the frustration comes in. And then often people are bouncing from thing to thing to thing, kind of looking for that magic cure that never really happens because you really have to put some consistency in what you're doing before you're going to see some kind of result. And I think a lot of that now, as I said, comes from a bit of frustration with social media. As we know, there has been a lot of changes in all the different platforms. And at this point, and this has been happening over time, you could post something. For instance, you could post something to Instagram and maybe, I don't know, I think last number I saw was like maybe 10% of your followers will actually see it. They will only show it to a small number of your followers at first, to see what kind of engagement it gets. And to me, that kind of doesn't make a lot of sense because they're going to decide, we're just going to show this to a tiny bit of people. And if nobody responds or gets small engagement, then we just won't show it to anybody else. And, the way I'm describing it probably is really simplistic, but it seems as though they're already limiting what you put out there. And so that makes it very difficult to reach the people you think you're reaching. And if you're constantly putting things out and you feel like you're not getting a response and then you're getting frustrated, that's going to, lead to you maybe abandoning that particular platform or maybe just not losing interest in which you may lose interest in posting and go away, and then maybe you come back and go away and come back, and again, the consistency is lost. And as we're seeing in different platforms, and again, I'm going to use Instagram as an example in this case, that they may shift in response to other things. Instagram shifted a lot of what it was doing in response to TikTok becoming so popular. So, suddenly it was, it's not the pictures, the graphic images anymore. That's not as important to us. We're going to go to stories. Now we're going to go to reels because, we want to compete directly with TikTok. And everybody doesn't want to do that. And there are a lot of people who are artists, for instance, who were on there, photographers and the like, who were like, wow, this is not what we want to do. This is not what we were here for. So we're moving on to other things. And, there are other platforms, not to say that there aren't. I was just on one the other day that I found because of a graphic artist who I found on TikTok, actually. She's got an account on this other platform called Lemon 8. I believe that's the name of it. And there's a lot of it that looks like the old Instagram used to look. And it seems to be pretty popular and growing in popularity, particularly for people who are doing graphic arts and probably fashion and things like that. But my point is that it went through all these changes. And now we're at a point where, people are like, I got to put reels. Well, why do I do that? And how often do I do that? And what about the other things? And that can get kind of crazy because you just want to put yourself out there, either to engage with people or maybe just to market what you're doing, market your books, connect with other people. And it just seems increasingly more difficult to do unless you're going to pay for an ad, pay for promotion. And that may not often get you what you want either. Because I've tried that myself and, there's some success. The numbers that they promise are never what I see at the end of the day. But then you're really looking at return on investment because you're really putting your money out there and saying, wow, did I really achieve what I thought I was going to achieve? What is this leading to, if anything? And that then becomes another source of frustration for you if you have an idea of what you want to see. And no matter what you're doing, you don't ever seem to get to that particular goal. And, of course, algorithms change all the time. And now I saw something on Instagram with broadcast, I believe it's broadcast channels. It might be the official name for it, where people were inviting you to their private, you could say, broadcast channel, where they're now sending things out, daily, let's say. And that's almost like going back to the original, idea of the platform, isn't it? Where now you're actually seeing everything this person's putting out, but now you're seeing it because you're on their private channel, and now you're part of their group that now you're going to see what they put out. So it's almost like you're going back to what, how things started when social media really started to grow and become a thing. And people could pretty much know they're going to see stuff that the people that they're following put out. And now you can't say that anymore at all, maybe on any of the platforms, to be honest. So I think because of that, it leads people to wonder, what am I doing? Why am I doing it? Is this really going to lead me where I want to go? And that's understandable because it takes a lot of work to create these different graphics, whether you're creating little movies, you could say, with reels, or whether you're, creating a story, whether you're trying to find something with a post or carousel and this, that, and the other. All that takes time to do. And usually it's going to take money to be able to use the tools. A lot of times they're not free, or maybe they just have a free trial. So you can put these things together. It requires more and more work. And if you are an author, you're doing your life things and writing and publishing and this, that, and the other, this is just one more thing that you have to do. And a lot of people out there really doing nice little reels and things like that. And obviously a lot of time gets put into to create, or just little slice of life, little stories of their own, of what's going on behind the scenes or whatever. And, if you're doing things like that and it's working for you, then just keep going. I'm not saying turn away from that. I'm saying the social media landscape has changed considerably. and it constantly will continue to change. So whatever works today may not work tomorrow. So again, kind of stepping back and looking at the big picture, what are the things I can do to really have more of a reach, let's say, to grow your reach? And maybe that means you have to look at some other tools as well, or maybe other tools that you'd rather be using instead. There's a lot to look at. But I think importantly, you should look at the things that you think will work for you. Because if you're going to commit to doing, lots of reels and videos and such, that's great. But if it's something that you feel that you really don't want to do, or is time consuming for you, money consuming for you, then maybe, that's not the way to go. You could try it out, maybe do it occasionally. But again, we get back to that thing where if you're not consistent, you're not building up the momentum. And then that's what creates the frustration. And also if you're not seeing any numbers, let's say you're putting stuff out, you're not seeing responses, you're not seeing numbers, you're not seeing engagement, it's easy to just say, well, I guess nothing's happening, why am I doing this? And that's understandable. I think, we all go through that sometime or another, depending on what we're doing and what platform that we're using. So again, when we're talking about blogging, you, in a sense now, are building something on your own part of the internet. Your spot, your space that you've established, maybe on your website, or you have some other thing going. For instance, there are a lot of people doing Substack and Medium. It's another place where people are blogging, and also Patreon is another place where people put content, including blogs or whatever articles or whatever you want to define it. Where again, that's their spot on the internet, their spot there that they're bringing people back to. And often, people may pay and see more content can be unlocked, or they could just see a small amount. If it's has a free option, usually in Patreon they do have free options, and also Substack and Medium. And the authors a lot of times can decide how much of it is accessible, it's free, and the rest of it may be locked unless you pay to get the full access. So that's possibly another source of income. But it's another way to also keep it exclusive to those people who are supporting you financially, your patrons, if you will, on those different sites. So let's say all that to say that blogging or long form writing or short form writing, however you want to define it, it has not gone away. It just shifted over time when blogging was, I guess you could say, super hot, and then social media came in. And I can remember a lot of people quickly running to Facebook to create groups and create pages. And then often the comment section could be embedded, I guess, from Facebook, if that's the right way to describe it, where people could comment, but can you log in using their Facebook account. So I think gradually it kind of shifted. People thought, well, let's move everything to Facebook. And then in time, I started seeing people changing that up. Maybe for one reason or another, because running a group takes a lot of work and monitoring. Excuse me, I'm going to take a drink here. My end of the day coffee that I definitely have to have. Where I saw people quickly create groups and pages, and then there were limits on how many people you could add to a group. I think suddenly they were running to pages. In the beginning, people were just jumping around to all these different things to get as much engagement or just get as many followers, because that was the big thing at the time, trying to get as many followers. Then after a while you realize that really didn't matter. It was the quality of the people you're engaging with as opposed to the numbers. So then, slowly but surely people starting to kind of back away from that, maybe even getting rid of some followers because they realized they weren't really engaging with them. And, maybe closing down groups because it became a lot of trouble to maintain and manage. So there's been, I guess, peaks and valleys in all of this over time. I really noticed that I saw more emails and things about blogging and starting a blog and all that again over the past maybe year or two. And I was like, oh, okay, I see that there's more shifts back now to where things were before, to some degree, because people realize, wow, social media had its promise and maybe there was a lot of good stuff happening there. But then with the shifts in the different platforms, there were a lot of platforms that existed several years ago that were hot and then boom, they were gone, which I thought was very interesting because I was presenting at one time workshops for people interested in social media. I was doing that at a couple of libraries in my state. Those are really good places to connect with people. If you've got local libraries that you can connect with, definitely good places to connect with, of course, respective readers. But a lot of them do have programs where you can come in and get paid to deliver certain kinds of workshops and things, or even maybe go there as an author. So if you haven't checked on your local library, then I would definitely do that. And even if you're just going there to take part in a workshop yourself as a participant, there's a lot of good stuff that happens at libraries. So please check that out. So that's a little segue there. But what I found was that at that time, a lot of people weren't really sure, should they be a part of this social media, that social media platform, this one, that one, the other one. And I went back and looked at those materials, and I saw that maybe half of the platforms that I had mentioned no longer exist. So I was like, wow, I forgot about this one and that one, the other one. Because they were hot, and then either they got gobbled up by one of the bigger platforms, or just the bigger platform kind of took all the features that platform had, and then suddenly it kind of, ran out of steam or funding or whatever was needed. Because I do remember when, I believe Instagram or Facebook maybe, well, now it's one thing, but it kind of took features that Snapchat had and, in I guess in an effort to kind of replace it. But Snapchat, as far as I know, is still around, so it hasn't, disappeared. But that's kind of the idea, to kind of gobble up whatever those hot features are, and now we're going to take into our thing. Then I think on the downside is what you have left is maybe, I don't know, 3 or 4 big platforms that now are just kind of like very sluggish. They used to seem so nimble and so hot. Oh, here's the thing we all need to be on. But then after a while, you're like, wow, so this is it, huh? This is the best that we can do. And they don't quite look so hot and interesting anymore. They're kind of not doing what they used to do, or you don't feel the same way, or the environment has changed to a large degree that it didn't seem like it was before. And that's true a lot in terms of moderation of the content, misinformation of content, which is a big problem on, I think most of the bigger ones. Definitely moderation. I'm thinking about one particular big platform right now, platform formerly known as, I'm not even going to say the names, but it's a shadow of what it used to be. It used to be the place to follow all kinds of events, current events, think TV shows. I can remember following a lot of TV shows on there. Just a lot of things. That was the hub. Now, I'm not sure how to describe it. Whatever I use to describe it wouldn't be positive, so I'm not going to go there. But you probably know the one I'm referring to at this moment. But, that's what I'm saying, how things can change. How if you built a strategy on that platform and now it's something that you may not even want to be on, or your readers may not be on. They may have run away from it. But that one platform has not been replaced. It's just kind of slowly disintegrating. And there's other smaller platforms that may have come up around it, but it's probably never going to have that same cachet. I don't know if that's the right word, but it's never really going to be the same again. So everything changes, of course. But as far as blogging, I think that's something that remains relatively the same. Throat, of course, is so itchy right now that I'm trying to do a podcast. That figures, right? So I say all that to say that blogging is something that pretty much remains the same in that respect. It's something that is on your website, let's say, or however you decide to do your blogging. If you're doing blogging on other sites, on those platforms that I mentioned, like Medium, Substack, it's, pretty much it's the same idea. You're putting your thoughts out there in what you're writing, or you're sharing bits of your story, or you're sharing interviewing other people, the writers. You could post anything really Whether you're talking about the story, talking about yourself, talking about publishing, talking about writing tips, sharing video, sharing audio. I mean, you can do all of that in that one place. But the good thing is you can also repurpose what's there. You can also repurpose parts of your blog. You can also turn your blog into a podcast episode. You can also just take pieces of it and make into social media posts if you so desire. And again, that's part of the planning. I'm going to bring that back around to where I started. Because there are times I go on a tangent and I'm like, well, where was I going with that? So to bring that back around, that could also be part of your planning. How you're, what you're planning for this blog to be about, what you're going to cover, how often you think you're going to post. I've posted a lot of times once a week, where I've tried to at least not have a week go by without posting something. So that way you're consistently making updates. And, from what I've read, then, let Google know that, this blog is not bust DOA. It's still functioning. It's out there. It's something that is living. So you may want to make sure you're always putting some kind of content out there to keep it going, keep it active, keep it relevant. And I think that's great too, because if you want people to follow the blog, then of course, you want them to know that there's stuff out there. And you can also, for instance, I have WordPress, so I use Jetpack, that people can sign up and subscribe to the blog. Because a lot of times it's better to have that. It goes straight to their inbox when there's a new post, as compared to hoping that people come back and find you. That's not something, unless it's a super popular blog or something, that people may do. But still, there's so much going on and people are busy. They may not even remember to go check on something, even if they do enjoy reading the content when they're there. So that's just something you can use if you want to have them get an alert, get a notification, or get the actual post in their inbox. Just, one of the tools that you can use to help to publicize what you're doing. And so what I've done overall, right here, good place to put this in right now, is that with the class that I presented, what I did was I put all the top important points about blogging and starting a blog and maintaining a blog and all that good stuff. I put that all into an online course. But what I've done is make it into a PDF workbook version that has fillable fields if you want to take notes and do your planning within that. So what you could do is either do it online. You can type it in online and save it into the PDF, or you can print it out if you like and just kind of write in those spaces if that's easier for you to do. So everything is all in one place. It's not like, I've got to take these notes over here, but I have the actual course information over there. It's all in one. What I wanted to do that for was because there was, as I said, there were people who were very interested in knowing more about it and not realizing they could utilize a blog, and that they hadn't gone away. That's something that they could consider using if they feel these other things they were doing weren't really giving them what they wanted, or because they just want to add something else that they think that might be helpful for them to market their books and to market, their author brand. So that was really my reason to put that together. And, as I said, when you start out, you just want to see what is my plan for it. What do I think I may want to share? And, that may change. It doesn't mean that once you share it, I can never share it again. You may decide I'm just going to share excerpts from my book, or I'm going to share character interviews. And that's it. And that's great. If that's what you want to do and that works for you, then continue to do that. But you may decide to do other things as well. You may want to, write your own information about what you think about an aspect of publishing, or your experience in it, or your experience of character development, or things like that. I think in the beginning when I started my fiction blog, because I had another one that I was a lot more active in before, but what I did was I started off just kind of talking about writing and talking about marketing, and maybe sharing some posts from other authors who wanted, to connect with other writers and their readers. And then after a while, I just started doing some information on some of my novels. So, I might go into, well, this is how I did the world building for this particular story. Because I remember I did something for Half of a Legacy, which is futuristic, science fiction, science fantasy. It's kind of a mashup, so I'm not going to try to define it at this moment because that's not what this is about. And then I'll just start talking about that, and I won't be talking about blogging. But what I did was I had in my mind already, of course, when I was developing the story, what the background was for the world building and the characters and all that. So I just started writing it into a blog post. And I ended up with about 5 of them, actually. And I had meant to continue that, but other things came up, and I didn't finish going into all the different characters and worlds that I had mentioned. But interestingly enough, with those 5 posts, when I had somebody working on cover for the 3rd book, I was able to point him in the direction of those posts because I really described everything about the world and the character backgrounds, things like that, and my inspirations. And I said, well, here's your links to all of that. So now you have all this background from when you get started. And, I really love the cover that he created, but it was something that was already there and put together. And I say that because it was more of an exercise for me to have some content, but also to put in writing what was already in the back of my mind and have it all in one place. But it also explained to people who might be interested in the books and would visit my site, oh, this is what I was thinking about when I wrote this particular book. And I think when I see that and I go to other writers' sites, because a lot of times if I see a writer, first thing I'm going to do is see do they have a website and check that out. And if they're talking about how they got their inspiration or things like that, then I find that really interesting, of course, as a writer. But I think as a reader as well, that I'm curious to see how did you create this, and what was in your mind when you create that, or what was the idea behind the world building. And I've definitely spent a lot of time on writer sites who, those writers who go into detail about their inspiration and, what they're thinking about with this, that, and the other. And I just find it fascinating. So speaking as a reader, I really enjoy that. So I'm just saying that may be something to consider, a way to get people to the site, but also to stay for a while and really take it all in and have a feeling that they're getting to know you and getting to know your work, which is really, what we want, isn't it? And also, of course, on your website, and this isn't really to go into the author website so much, but, of course, you should have your books and links, buy links, things like that. So don't forget that part of it. It's the blogging, yes, but don't forget the other important parts that I hope that you also have in your author websites. But to go back to my original topic, you want to have all that stuff planned out ahead of time. You don't want to just put the pressure on yourself to just go, yes, now I'm going to blog, but I don't know what I'm going to talk about, and I don't know how often I'm going to post. Because that's just going to lead to, again, the frustration. I'm not sure what to do. I'm not sure how often to do it. What's the point? And then you go like, well, I'll get back to that, and then you never do. So that's why all the pre-planning stuff, it is beneficial if you do that before you even decide to get started on anything else. Because then it's going to be easier for you to go and do the rest. And, of course, by the time you're doing your repurposing of your content, then now you've got these things written up, you've got this information out here, now you can decide how I'm going to share this on social media if you want, or, whatever channels that you're using to share what you've already created. Or if you've got things you've created on social media, maybe you shared a quote, but now you want to put together a post about the quotes that inspire you. And I've done that. And I wrote for another blog. These are the quotes I've used in this particular book, and this is why. And this is how I use that to show the theme of the book. You never know how you can use the information you've created. I also did something like that for the soundtracks, I guess you could say, that I had on Spotify or YouTube. And this is the music that I feel inspired me to, as I was writing. Or I picked these songs because these line up with this particular story. And that's something that I put on the blog. And, you can write a blog post about that. It's open. to what you feel you want to share with your readers, you want to share with other writers, or you can even write more personal experiences. It's up to you what you feel like sharing and what you feel your objective is. So that's what I'm saying. Don't feel like you're limited. I think a lot of times on social media, we may feel limited on how you're sharing because each site has its own identity. So there's certain things that may be appropriate to share in one place that somewhere else it may not be, the same thing, or you may not share it in the same way. You may want to be more open on your blog, let's say, maybe, than you may be, on some other site. Or, in some cases you may share more on your newsletter than you may share, on Instagram or Threads or wherever you are. So your blog pretty much is, it's your spot on the internet. It's your part of your hub where you're hoping that people come back to and check out your books and everything. So it really is up to you. I think when you start out, you really have to look at it that way and not really worry so much about, well, what should I do because this or that expert says I should. I think you really have to feel like, well, this is expressing me. And when people come here and look at my information, my author information, this is what I want them to come away with, or this is how I want them to know who I am and what I'm about and what my books are about and all that kind of good stuff. That, to me, is kind of the purpose of why you would want to put your writing out there in the form of blog posts. And also, as I said, have it be a hub, have your website be a hub where all of that stuff is, or at least accessible, a place they can come, they can get links to where those things are. If you decide you would rather use something like Substack or Medium or your Patreon, at least they can get to that place and find links to these other places and know where other places they can connect with you and see more of your work and your writing, or your content, however you're going to express it. So I really didn't want to go on and on and on about this because I wanted to try to keep it as much to the point as I possibly could. And I know sometimes that I don't do that. So I really want to make sure that I stay within the lines of what I wanted to share with this particular topic. But, as I was saying before, I put this together into the course workbook, and I pretty much shared with people how they could get started, their planning, things to consider with different ways they can repurpose, some resource links as far as things like keywords and SEO, and I also included a separate download, giving more information about that, because I know sometimes that can be a little confusing as well. And a lot of times that changes. Algorithms are always changing, particularly Google is always changing something. And it's like now, for instance, I'm seeing a lot of their responses have a lot of, AI. The AI comes out on the top and it's like, okay, sometimes it's relatively accurate. Other times it seems to kind of not understand what I put in, the query I put in. So you can't depend on that 100% either. Sometimes it's kind of saying things and not really answering the question that you put out there, that information you're trying to get. So that's also something to be mindful of, though, because that's also now in the results. For instance, I've also had situations where I've looked up, I can't remember if I was looking up romantic suspense or something. I forgot the subgenre I was looking up, but I typed it in and suddenly, like, the page had all these books from Amazon. And I was like, wow, the actual books and a little bit of their description was popping up, which again shows how important it is to have your descriptions and keywords and such if you're on Amazon or these other bookseller sites. But that's a whole other topic, so I'm not going to go into that. But it's very interesting what popped up. So, of course, if you have your website and you've got, your SEO and all that good stuff in there, then if people are looking for writers who, are in these subgenres, then of course you have a better chance of popping up. But also, again, taking it back to blogging, which is where we started, if you're looking for topics that you can write about that maybe something people, of course, are looking for, which would be nice if you did that. Then if they're looking for a certain type of story, or, maybe a writer's looking for a certain type of information, and you're researching keywords and SEO and all that stuff, and they may, put in a query, if you're sharing some writing tips about writing romantic suspense, and maybe you do a query on Google and see, well, what comes up if I type this in, and you may see a whole listing of different ways that this query is being worded that people are searching for. So quite possibly you could use that wording in your title, or in some way that, I know people are looking for, romance beats in romantic suspense, let's say. So, okay, that's an interesting topic. It's something that I can share. Because, this is obviously, I'm seeing how many people are looking for this, and these are things that I could speak to. So, maybe that's a writing tips blog post that I could make, and that could also bring people to your blog who are looking for that information. So, again, I added also a bonus download that talks about SEO and keywords and things like that. So that gives you an idea of things you can research to see, okay, if I'm writing about certain topics, how can I phrase this in the title of my post, or maybe ways that I can phrase some things in the post. But again, I'm not saying to pack your blog post with a lot of SEO that doesn't sound right, I guess. Because I think you probably have read blog posts that seem like they're just packing in keywords, and it just wasn't making sense, or it just seemed very repetitive and not really interesting to read. You don't want that. Okay, that's out the door right now. That's not the way to do it. You don't want to sound that way, because then people aren't really going to read what you've written. You don't want that, especially as a writer. But just be mindful of what people may be looking for, what your readers may be looking for, what you can incorporate in there in a normal, natural way is what I'm talking about. Not in a way that feels like you're forcing these words into your post just to, get people to find it, and then they're reading it and it doesn't, it's not something that sounds right to them. I think that was really all I want to say about this topic for today. Yeah, I think that's it. As I said, I don't want to go on and on about it. I think I've made the points I want to make, but I just want to be sure to share that with you, because I, want to share the different things I was creating as far as the courses, and to let you know they're out there and how these could be very helpful for you, I hope. And I'm going to have the links in the show notes, of course, for the fiction writing classes I've been putting online, because I do have the content already. I'm still presenting different workshops for some different groups, but, I already have content I've created, and I was like, this would really be cool to just put them into a format that's easy for people to get and download and use. So that's my wish, my hope, that it will also be easy for you to use and get something out of, and hopefully another marketing tool for you to get yourself and your books out there in a way that may be a little less stressful, shall we say. They're trying to fit all these different posts and updates across the whole, social media universe. It's to try to create all these things and feel like you're burning out, and maybe it's just, getting back to basics may be helpful. Maybe it's not everybody's thing, and that's great. That's fine. Doesn't have to be. But for, if you're considering it and you want to give it a try, you have been blogging and want to maybe get some tips that maybe, may help with what you're doing, then I hope that you will consider this course that I provided. And right now, in the introductory price for this one and for the podcasting one is $17. So I've priced it that way right now because, as I said, introductory. And so I just, pretty much want to put it at a price that isn't going to break the bank right now, because there's a lot that people have to pay for and considering, and I definitely know how that is. So I just wanted something that was at a nice price and also had a lot of information that I'd shared. Like I said, I shared that over a weekend. So, I really kind of wanted to consolidate it down to the things that I thought were important points that are going to help you get started in blogging, with some examples and resource links and, the SEO keyword download that goes with it as well. So I'm going to, as I said, I'm going to share the link for the website in the show notes. It's payhip.com/fiction writing classes. And fiction writing classes is all one word. payhip.com/fiction writing classes. Maybe I may do a podcast episode about Payhip, because I thought that it's a very helpful site for those people who are looking to do direct sales, which is another thing that I have, another course I've presented, and that went very well. And I'm also going to put that together probably into a webinar, which I'm going to be promoting shortly. I'm looking to set that up because I have it. I originally presented it as a 2-week class, but I think I'm going to put it into like a 90-minute webinar. I think that would be very helpful right now. And excuse me. So when I do that, I'm going to share that here as well. But Payhip has been a pretty interesting site for selling books and also for selling classes, selling coaching, if that's something that you do. Classes, you can put on here different things, different kinds of content that you can sell from here. And there is like a small fee for sales, per sales, but you can start off with a free account, which is really free. It's not like just 5 days or 10 days trial. It's free unless you want to upgrade. And for the most part, I'm able to do most things with the free account. So I don't feel that it's something that I'm being shortchanged, because I'm really not, wanting to invest more into this at this moment. But it's not to say that you may feel differently. A lot of people pick some other sites because they're more robust for what they're looking for, and that's great. But this is just something to consider if you want to make a very small investment. Like I said, they take a percentage of the sale from the transaction processing, but it's not that you're also paying a membership monthly or something like that. You're not. So if it's something you want to start out with, just to see how it goes before maybe you decide, hey, that's great, but now I want to move on to something else, that's possible. Because a lot of those platforms allow you to move from one to another relatively easily. A lot of times they have documentation in place to show you how to move from one to the other. So, like I said, I may do a show about just touching on Payhip, so I'll give you an idea of what's possible out there. If this is something else some of you may be considering selling, as I said, courses or coaching or doing direct sales of your books. So just putting that out there. But again, I'm going to put the link in the show notes so you can kind of click through and check it out. And I think that is it for now. As far as doing some other shows, I know that normally I'm doing shows and interviewing people, and that's probably going to be something I'm going to start again. Either later this month or next month. There's been a lot going on with me personally, so I haven't really had the opportunity to do the interviews that I really enjoy doing, to bring other entrepreneurs to the table and have them talk about what they're up to as well. But as I said, the life and time and trying to pull all that together sometimes is a big challenge. So you do the best you can. And again, that's why I'm suggesting if blogging works for you and it's something that alleviates some stress or alleviates work that you're doing, trying to post on many different other places, and something to consider. Okay, and I think that's it. Okay, so I want to thank you for joining me today to talk about blogging for authors, and hopefully I will be back a lot sooner with Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you again next time. Bye-bye now.